Hi, my name is Riley Rourke. I'm a digital producer here at WBZ, and I am joined today by author Christopher Golden. Your new book, Carry Me to the Grave, is coming out very, very soon. Do you want to talk a little bit about what it's about?
Yeah, I mean it's set in 1956, and it's about this guy named Malcolm who's a Korean War veteran. His mother is dying, and on her deathbed, she basically gets him to promise her that when she passes, he will take her remains from Indiana, where they live, to her birthplace in Maine,
Mhm.
and bury her there. But he has to do it within 2 days by the second sunrise, which of course is really bizarre. But his mother has always been a little bit bizarre, and the locals have always, when he was growing up, the kids would chant about her being a witch.
Mhm.
Um, when she does die, and he gets her on the train to try to carry her to her grave, um, things start to rise from the earth around the country and head toward them to try to prevent him from fulfilling his promise.
The idea is phenomenal. I'm from Maine, actually, so when I saw this, I was like, "Oh, I have to ask you, why did you choose Maine?"
So I live in Massachusetts,
Mhm.
but I've always had this love of Maine. I would like to live there, not be buried there necessarily, but I would love to live there. And I've been going there, basically my whole life since childhood. So, I just love it, and it seemed like the perfect destination for a sort of lonely seaside finale. So there you go.
Love it. So, something that I love in horror and thriller books is the use of a train.
Mhm.
Trains are such a fun way to force everyone to be in one area. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you decided to include a train in this book? It's just such a fun
You
thing.
know what? You just put your finger on it, which is the idea that they're forced to be in one spot. I, you know, First of all, one of the reasons I wanted to set it in the 50s, aside from the fact that I watch Golden Age Hollywood films all the time, is that I wanted the train. And later, it would be much more likely that they would be able to take an airplane. I mean, there were airplanes then, obviously, but it was harder to afford them, and of course, to get exactly where they're going, it didn't make sense. So the great thing about a train is that you can still have the urgency of the horror that's unfolding around them, and the sort of thriller elements, and the stress of everything that's happening, and the dread that you want. But you can only go as fast as the train goes. And
Mhm.
so you do have time for the characters to interact, and for the tension to build, and for other things to happen sort of along the way. And I love those settings, regardless of what kind of story it is. I mean, so many classic things take place on trains. I even think about sort of White Christmas. The train ride in
Mhm.
White Christmas is like a big thing for me. And again, there is just so many. From Russia with Love with James Bond has a really cool train scene. So I go back to all of these things, and although none of those are horror movies, they still are part of my brain.
Yeah, I love that. I love trains. I mean, an iconic book with a train would be Murder on the Orient Express,
Of
obviously.
course,
The
of
Polar
course.
Express, they're just such a
Yeah,
fun way to force everyone to be like, oh, we got to interact now.
yeah.
So you have such an impressive catalog. You've done screenplays, you've written books. What brings you back to horror? Why horror?
You know what? It's so funny you should say. I mean, I've always been the horror kid, and
Mhm.
horror right now is so hot. And I never thought that we would get back to this point where horror was really popular,
Mhm.
because I've been doing this all along. And sometimes it was like I would write a fantasy novel that was also a horror novel, or a thriller that was also a horror novel. Um, I don't know. I just gravitated as a kid. I always joked that my mom at one point when I was starting writing, when I was a teenager, would say, "Why can't you write something good?" By good, she meant something nice. And
Yeah.
I said, like, well, look, I've written science fiction stories and mysteries and romantic stories. In fact, most of my stories have romance in them, but something horrible always happens.
Mhm.
And I honestly think it's because it's the best catalyst there is to get
Yeah.
people to open up emotionally. You put people in like danger or a pressure cooker, or make them afraid, and suddenly the mundane parts of life no longer seem that important, and you really have to focus on what is important.
Yeah. I think that's such a great way to put it. I mean, it's so true. My friends and I actually have a horror book club that we read a
Love it.
lot of horror books. The Lamb specifically was one that we loved recently. I don't know if you've heard about that one. Is there any, like, what are you reading right now? Are you reading any horror? Is there like one that's top of mind?
You know what? I have to say that because I read so much for blurbs,
Yeah.
often hard, and by that I mean like I read books that are coming up soon that I can offer support to those writers. I tend not to have a lot of time to steal away from myself, which is why my to be read shelves are so overflowing. But I have read a lot of great books like recently. I just finished a book by Chuck Tingle called Bury Your Gaze, which is a great Hollywood horror novel that manages to like focus on the dangers of technology, of
Mhm.
runaway technology, but also, um, coming out in Hollywood and all of these things. It's really clever. And let's see. I mean, I recently read Mayra by a younger author named Nikki Gonzalez. It's her first novel. It's terrific. It's sort of gothic and like it's sort of Florida swamp gothic, if you
Ooh.
want to put it that way, with a little Bluebeard kind of thrown in. Um,
Wait, that
and
sounds
I don't know, just like so many things. I just have to look around. I just read upcoming novels that I recently read. A book called The Blooming by Erica Ferenchek, which is like it's sort of like a mushroom based
yeah.
world catastrophe novel, but it's so focused on this mother and daughter. That's wonderful. I read this, what they're now calling horror mance by
Ooh.
Clay McLeod Chapman, called Devil Inside, which is terrific. So there's so much stuff that
Yeah.
so that's the one of the good things about reading for blurbs is you get to read a lot of things before everybody else gets them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And you get to know you're like, this one's gonna be popular.
yes, exactly.
Um, so I have to mention Lionsgate has picked up the rights to this book before it's even come out. Francis
Yes,
Lawrence is taking a look at it. How does that feel to have a book turned into a movie before it, not turned into a movie, but the rights picked up before it's even come
yes,
out?
yeah. It's only I think the second time that's happened for me.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. I mean, currently there are three of my novels: Road of Bones, The House of Last Resort, and Carry Me to My Grave are all in various stages of development.
Yeah.
They all have, well, two of them have directors attached. They all have amazing studios and producers attached. I'm writing the screenplay for The House of Last Resort. But Carry Me to My Grave, when they said Francis Lawrence, I was like, that's amazing. Not only because of the Hunger Games movies, which are so beautifully executed, but also because I know he has such a passion for horror stories
Yeah.
and has done some amazing work. I mean, the adaptation of Stephen King's The Long Walk that came out last year
Yeah.
is one of the like most startling movies of the last. Even though I read the book,
Mhm.
the execution was just so startling. So I'm thrilled. Obviously, I mean, I've got my fingers tightly crossed.
It's so great. And congratulations. So my last question is actually about your events in Massachusetts. You have a lot coming up. Do you want to just like maybe highlight some of those and tell fans what to expect at them?
Sure. I mean, the Massachusetts events. The big one on my tour is going to be August 8th at it's actually going to be at Off Cabot, which is part of the Cabot Theater in Beverly, hosted by Copper Dog Books. And the great thing about that is that it involves a bunch of writers, not just me. I'm sort of the host,
Mhm.
but it includes Paul Tremblay and Michael Carita, Eric LaRocca, Kylie Lee Baker, Nikki Gonzalez. So I mentioned Lindy Ryan, a bunch of writers that I'm super excited to have there. And then let's see, I'm also going to be doing an event with Paul Tremblay uh, at Porter Square Books in
Yeah.
Cambridge. That's right, on August 27th. And a couple weeks before that, on August 14th, I'll be with Clay McLeod Chapman at An Unlikely Story in Plainville. Um, and then later in the year, September 26th, is the Spooktastic Book Fair in Boston. People should definitely try to hit that up. And October 17th, the Merrimack Valley Halloween Book Festival, which is in Lawrence this year. So yeah, I've got a really busy year, and those are just
Yeah.
local Massachusetts events.
You picked great bookstores. I love all of those bookstores. They're
We're
so
really
great.
lucky. in
Yes.
Massachusetts. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite like local bookstore that is like your place
Well,
to
look, I
go?
mean, I think I'd be shot if I tried to pick a favorite, but the one that I work with the most and the booksellers that I'm closest to are the amazing team at Copper Dog Books.
Yeah.
They're in Beverly, Massachusetts. I live in Haverhill, so it's probably the closest great independent bookstore. But I also love Gibson's bookstore, which is up in Concord, New Hampshire. Obviously, an unlikely story. The manager there is a great friend, and so yeah, we're just really lucky, to have these amazing indie bookshops that are, and the booksellers. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I think we don't spend enough time singing the praises of the booksellers at these indie bookshops because authors would be nowhere without them. But more importantly, they're first readers. They're the people who get the word out and trumpet things, and their excitement is contagious. And there's nothing like spending time with really excited booksellers because
Yes.
it's sort of like the direct conduit to your readers.
Yes, and it makes the bookstore experience so much better. My personal
So
favorite
much.
is Love Struck Books in Cambridge. They're just so kind and knowledgeable there. They give the best recommendations.
Yes, I have not visited Love Struck yet, but I definitely need to get down there because I know that they stock horror books that have
Yeah,
romantic elements as well. So I definitely need to hit that up.
yeah. Well, is there anything that you want to add, maybe where people can find your book, the date, anything else that you think I didn't touch on?
I mean, just to say that you know, July 21st is the pub date for
Hmm.
Carry Me to My Grave. It should be in all the finer bookshops, and I hope people will go and pre-order it. If you want a signed copy, you can actually pre-order that through Copper Dog Books. And I just can't wait for people to read it because it's honestly,
Yeah.
truly my favorite of all my books. It's the one that I was happier with when I finished it than anything I've ever written.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I'm excited for people to get it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today, and congratulations on the book.
Thank you, Riley. I appreciate it.